Sooners of Oklahoma at 12-0 and still looking for respect nationwide.
What is going on, Sooner Nation? Thank you all for tuning into another episode of the Barry and Mac Show. As always, myself, Barry, personal trainer, sports forms coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and alongside me, former Sooner wide receiver, 2000 national champ, Mr. Damian Mackey. How are we doing tonight, D Mac?
Can you hear me, B?
I can hear
Can
you
you hear me?
just fine. Yeah.
Hey, man. Long season finally ended. Of course, today we got some interesting news regarding the DC. Um, Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to
Yeah,
you and
you
your
too, man.
family. You know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
spent a lot of time with the chitlins. You know what I mean? The chitlins. The kids were sick. Wifey was sick. So I played daddy daycare.
There you
But
go.
hey, man, we found a way to lose a game. We found a way to lose our young DC. Next year is a prove it year. It's a lot. It's a lot going on right now, and I think there's a lot on the Sooner Nation's plate. We got to bring it. It's a put up or shut up year, and so I don't want to. I don't want to, like downplay that. I think there's a lot to discuss in terms of what expectations need to be, are going to be, and what the Sooner Nation, the fans, the alumni, hell, everybody needs to be talking about as it relates to our football program. And so, we'll touch on that stuff tonight.
Yeah, we'll get it going with the defensive coordinator situation, DMAC. It is not a shocker. So I think I can let the cat out of the bag a little bit on this at this point. I know I had texted you. I had heard through the grapevine that Ali had been interviewing at various places, kind of just brushing up on the chops a little bit for different positions. It had been floated around that Ali was at the time, and then we even talked about it a little bit off air, that this is just what coaches do. They get brushed up on the interview process. They go interview for jobs they're probably not going to get, but then now you've built a relationship. You've got rapport with the program. I won't say what program, but in this case, Ali's name and his intentions of wanting to move up the coaching ranks were there. I think the surprise on this DMAC and where I want to take this as we get the show started is you're coming off of OU having, even though the season wasn't great, arguably one of the better defenses they've had in a long time, right? A defense that had playmakers on the front, had playmakers at backer, and had playmakers on the back end. And yes, they had struggles different times in those various groups, depending on the specific matchups, but you can see the maturation of the defense. You saw guys like Stutzman and Bowman and even an Eli Bowen and Jaden Jackson and Ethan Downs develop into young leaders who really took the bull by the horns, not only in season, but in the off season leading up to this year. And it was a big contributing factor to the success of the defense. And I don't think it's so much that OU fans are disappointed that Zach Alley took another job. When you come to OU as a coordinator, it is expected that you do well, a la Levy, Wilson, Long, Venable, Stoops. It's expected that you do well, and then you move on and take another job. I think the fans are surprised at the haste in which it happened, right? I think they're surprised in Ali being a quote-unquote BV guy, right? Sort of like Chavis in the same cut as like a Skalski, who's still on staff. And the surprise is how quickly he did it. And then the big one is to the program he chose, going to work with a guy who he's worked with in the past. The relationship with Rich Rodriguez is certainly there. Rich Rodriguez is trying to bring back the West Virginia of yesteryear, get them back to being a winning program. But my question is, what do we make of it looking on the outside here, trying to figure out why make such a not even lateral move? It's almost a downgrade move. What do you think is the catalyst for that, and how do we feel about that?
Yeah, questions, right? I think you have a lot of questions. I guess the first thing we need to discuss is the optics. It does not look good. All right. You talk about bright spots this season. What areas of comfort and or confidence do you have going into next season? And you can say, hey, the defense, right? I think they said on the telecast yesterday, the best defense since 2009. 2009 is the year after the Natty, the year Sam and all those guys get hurt. I think that's the BYU game, right? We got season-ending injuries, week one, week zero, actually, and the defense essentially carries the team. Um, and so good defense, by the way, really good defense. And so to have a defense have that type of statistical season, essentially keep us in a lot of big games for half a game, right? The Tennessee game, they keep us in the game. The Ole Miss game, they keep us in the game. We had some games where with defense, showed up, and if the offense had any sign of life, we could have been competitive. You got a young DC coming in with a known relationship with BV. I believe he played for BV and Clemson. And so there's all these relationship things. And here's what I want to really speak to, Barry, is the intangibles, right? When people say, hey, you know, Coach BV had to take over a program and strip it to the studs, especially on defense where Link left it, right? The things that people could kind of hold their hat to that Coach Venables was able to do was create a culture, to build relationships, to establish consistency. And you start to see the side of the ball where he supposedly, and here I am, sounds like I'm talking smack about my coach, but I'm just the optics, right? If I'm an opponent, this is what I'm going to be saying to recruits, to parents, to whomever, you know, I thought that was his guy, and I thought they had.
Hmm.
And man, why does a guy want to leave a defense that's statistically the best in 15, 16 years, right? I think that is something we at least have to speak to because it is what it is. And you can't, if there's an elephant in the room, damn it, you got to say, hey man, there's some tusks and some big flappy ears and that gray dirty thing that makes these noises. It's an elephant. You don't act like there is an elephant. You address the elephant. And so I am very interested, Barry, to see how coach is going to respond. I mean, if he just plays the, hey, we're proud of him, he's moving on. The facts of the matter is, like you said, it's not a promotion. It's a lower tiered conference, and within the Big 12, it's not like the premium school. Like if it was Utah, hey, I don't know if you would say
Even Colorado right now, like
Utah, Colorado, or an Arizona State who came out of nowhere to be a big time, BYU kind of a program. West Virginia is like that weird program back east, right? Like, they kind of just found their way into the conference. It's not as if it is a signature school. That those things concern me. And so I want to put those out there. I don't want to sugarcoat that, but I also want to say this. Zach Alley came into a program, into a situation where the dogs on the defensive line were recruited by Bates. The backers were guys who had been with BV going into his third season. Some of the defensive players, aside from the corners, were safeties Peyton and Billy and RSJ, who have been in the program 2 and 3 years. So I do want to pump the brakes just a little bit on essentially calling him a magician or maybe him being the transformative piece that made all this stuff go, because I don't know that we can say that, right? These guys are in season 3 of learning BV's defense, of the terminology, of the blitzes, down and distance, right? The different formations. Those guys have been in the system a while. I do believe, just based on productivity, especially at the backer position, we can assume that Coach Alley was a great communicator and probably a guy who got into the nuances with the backer position. You saw Kip take a step forward. You saw Danny, obviously, especially the second half of the season. Danny, he continued to play well. Obviously, an AA caliber season, all conference guy, I believe, first, second team all conference guy. But I don't think the sky is falling as it relates to this one incident. But when you're talking about the ingredients that make the cake, that is the 2024 season, that is BV's resume, that is the outlook going into the 2024 offseason and then the 2025 season, this is not good. Um, you know, and we'll talk about some of the optimism because there is some opportunities, and
Sure.
we're all kind of like, oh my God, what happened? You right, and we don't know, right? We don't really know. I haven't reached out, haven't sent a text or a call or anything. It's gonna play out how it plays out. Um, but as of today, you know what I'm saying? It's not the greatest of news, especially going back to what I said previously, which is there were some bright spots this season,
Oh
and
yeah.
I would say Zach Alley is probably one of them. The detractors are going to simply say, hey, he knows the writing's on the wall. I think he wants job security. I think he wants to be in a place where he's guaranteed another 2, 3, 4 seasons, where Rich Rod is, a beloved son, right? Some of those teams he had with Slayton and Noel Devine and those guys back in the early 2000s, he's going to have time to build something versus BV, who, again, period, point blank, he needs to be in a pressure cooker in 2025. And this going from a huge BV apologist. You can't be the other guy who, in the last 100 years, has had multiple losing seasons under your tenure, when the other was John Blake. There's two dudes last 100 years who's had multiple losing seasons. John Blake's one, the other one is our current coach. It is what it is. That's his resume. He needs to own that. He doesn't need to tell us about it, right? But he needs to know at a school like OU, it's not gonna be accepted. And he should not expect people to sugarcoat it. The good old boy network of saying like, shh, we need to keep it on the hush. I ain't keeping shit on the hush, right? We need to speak to it, and they need to prepare this offseason with their hair on fire. And in the grand scheme of things, the macro lens of BV, he needs to attack this offseason. He needs to attack this hire. If Zach is gone, like they say he's gone, he needs to attack this hire. This is an opportunity for him to say, okay, we lost my pup. I'm going to go get a top-notch recruiter. I'm going to go get someone who brings additional value to the table. I'm going to go get someone who might even bring a guy or two or three. Don't get me back to don't get me started, because
Coley,
I'll start
bring in
I'll,
Coley.
I'll start going through the tea leaves, man, and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's get a DC who has some connections on the offensive side of the ball,
Yeah.
because we need some help on offense. We got
Yeah.
some of our portal entries and some of the guys we bringing in, they ain't moving the needle. But anyway, interesting times. I'm just gonna keep my ear to the ground and just pay close attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the end of the world. It's definitely a talking point, but the optics suck. And coach, you're up to bats, the ninth inning. We're down 2 runs. There's 2 runners on base. Are you going to hit a home run, or are you going to do something different? So we'll see how it all plays out.
We know now in college football, it's the Jimmies and Joes more so than anything at this point, right? The best teams playing right now, playing football, were the teams that dominated the transfer portal, went out and got guys, whether it was a plethora of guys like a Texas or an Oregon, or it was Arizona State where it was strategic and they had certain amount to spend, and they went and got this receiver and went and got this experienced backer who was going to lead the team. It was a little more just well put together and thought out. So at the end of the day, at this point, we know Jimmys and Joes are what really moves the needle when it comes to wins. And the question is, what kind of direction does OU go? For me, DMAC, it is a surprising move, only because it felt like if Ali has another good season, regardless of how the offense turned out, if OU's defense goes out there another year with arguably probably overall a more talented team, or at least a more talented two deep on paper, right? You lose Stutzman, you lose Bowman, those are big losses, but you have guys coming up. I've heard some phenomenal things about Okoye and his commitment to the program. Guys, I know people were worried about that. I can like sign, seal, and deliver that that's not an issue, but which is good news, right? He's a freak, and he's been called that by a number of teammates. I think he is going to be the dog next year when it comes to somebody off that edge who can maybe be opposite an RMT. But You felt like head coaching opportunities were going to be there regardless of how the overall record looks if the defense goes out there and balls out. So this takes a little bit of the sunshine off of the offensive coordinator hire, off of Mateer coming in. It feels like it just kind of takes OU back down. I do think it is important to remember, and you brought it up, these players were here. This defense this year, it just kind of felt like the natural step of maturation. It did seem obvious that he made a difference in getting calls in a little quicker. It felt like personnel was a little bit tighter. It felt like there were just everything was just a little smoother, a little cleaner. Where I want to go with this is asking you, is this a situation where you need to bring in somebody who knows BV's scheme, who is understanding of what BV is wanting and trying to run?
Are we
Or do you go and get a guy who is going to bring in somewhat of his own system? Where do you go with this?
First of all, somebody said Dollar Tree you. No, man.
That's hilarious. We'll put that
Hey,
one up, man.
what statute of limitations on self-incrimination on stuff you experienced and or because it
I
wasn't
mean,
Dollar
I
Tree.
think now that it's nil era, man, I think self-incriminating's gone.
It wasn't Dollar Tree you when I went there. I'll just tell you that. Um, you know, we had a
There we
good time.
go.
Nah, what I want or what I think. What I want is I want us to go make a splash hire. Listen, we are in the era of athletic sports, pro, college, female, or late, whatever. We're in the era of splash, right? These guys are attracted to and wanting to be a part of something different, something mega, something provocative. And you see a lot of programs going that route. And 10 years ago, it was lame. Now it works. And
Mhm.
although I'm a guy who's about character and identity, like that's really big to me. And as a business coach, those are things I discuss with people as I coach them in business. I understand the landscape of business today. Like, and to not do that is to be, you know, like we like to say, lost in yesteryear. And so I would like listen. Here's a question we ask ourselves. I'm not going to read the comments. Here's a question we ask ourselves, right? Like somebody said, don't highlight the comments. God dang it. Is that you doing that or is that someone
That
else
was
doing that?
me. That
Don't do
was
that,
the
bro.
layaway.
Relax.
Go
Relax. He
ahead.
said, someone said a layaway program. But stop. Don't do that no more. I'm trying
Oh
to lock
man.
in, dog. I'm trying to lock
Oh
in.
yeah, let's go.
Um, yeah. What would Ohio State do?
Mm.
What would Alabama or Georgia do? You know what I'm saying? Like if Alabama were in this scenario, what would Saban do? And DeBoer is, first year in the program, but DeBoer wouldn't just like go get Western Kentucky's whatever. You know what I mean? Like, what would Texas do? Would there be a comprehensive search? Would there be multiple candidates that we're looking at? If Coach V next week comes to the pedestal or whatever the hell, I don't know if it's called a pedestal, comes to the damn mic and says, hey, we're going to promote blah, blah, blah from within, and we're just going to take an analyst and move them to a position coach and then take a position coach and then move them to DC. In my opinion, it just takes a little more of the luster off our university.
Hmm.
Even if that's the route he goes, I feel like this is an opportunity for him to bring attention, bring light, and really do his due diligence. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, there's diminished returns when you just internally hire within your current ecosystem. By the way, that applies in life, that applies in business, that applies in sports, that applies in entertainment. At a certain point, you want to be able to go out of your current ecosystem and find more talent, right? We need to diversify that talent. We need to entrench new ideas. We need to have people who can, challenge some of the status quo because, we are currently, like I said, we're in a 3-year skid where it just isn't good. We need to be thinking about some things. So what I think is going to happen is I mean, his past practice, the precedent is someone's going to get promoted from within just because that's how BV has done it. What I want to happen is I want him to at least give us the perception that it's a big deal, that it's a great opportunity, that we're looking at candidates, right? I just think there is a lot of merit in doing that. By the way, kudos to him for going and getting Arbuckle, right? Arbuckle, although not my very, very first choice, is one of the ones that I agree. I say, hey, that Wazoo offense and the things that he's got cooking, and we talked about it. Plus, if he can bring the QB,
100%.
so those things came together. Um, I think that is the recipe to killing two birds with one stone, Barry, and that is one, to hire the very best possible DC. And I get it, BV's a DC, so it's not like we're going to go out and get a Lanning who is a totally different program with totally different terminology, right? I get that there's a disciple, what I'm saying, type of scenario here, because BV wants to run his stuff. And by the way, I want to talk about his stuff. We had a great defense, but his defense still it irks me in some ways.
Yeah.
And then the other stone is obviously to get the right candidate. And so the provocative part, and then obviously the right answer. Both of those matter.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed it. I know the jokes of Dollar Tree U and OU has been spending money competitively with a lot of other programs. For me, looking at this, it makes me think there is something, maybe a little bit deeper, with some of this. Maybe there is something that we're just not seeing, we're not fully understanding. There's something going on that maybe it's just something that as fans looking at the program from the outside, we don't know quite what the inner workings of the move were, right? We don't know what the decision making at points were when it came to Ali deciding to leave, right? What was the deciding factor? What were some of the things he was considering? And there may be things that make us go, you know what, maybe it was the right move. Maybe there's something going on personally. Maybe there was, you just never know, right? So it's tough to make a judgment, but outside looking in, it does seem that OU tried to offer him more money to entice him to stay, or what some of the reports out there are saying for some of the legitimate sources. But it still is, it's a little bit troubling just to see that. But let's move on, DMAC. We've talked a little bit about John Mateer, but on the last show, I think we probably deserve a little more time since what OU's done in the portal since then. They brought in a couple receivers who have maybe don't move the needle in terms of big time guys, but they are solid players. So just talk a little bit about what you've seen since the Mateer edition, where you think OU is currently setting, and what kind of grade you would give them thus far, as far as just what they've done in the portal.
Yeah. So first things first, guys, I read the comments. Some of you guys are immature as hell. I'm not gonna go there tonight. Sometimes I do. I'm not gonna do it tonight. But a couple of you guys said some things that are very extremely inappropriate, and so just let's act like adults. Hopefully, we are adults. Portal wise, it's man, it leaves a lot to be desired. There was this whole campaign of OU's going to play big boys, OU's going to pay that money, OU is going to, pull all the stops. And there's two ways to look at it. I think in one regard, OU looks at their team like they are still running a program, and they have guys that are in development stages, and some are going to be ready to play ball. You brought up a very good example of that in Okoye, right? Okoye is a guy who was not ballyhooed this season. He didn't have a bunch of productivity. We know his frame, his body, his athleticism, and things that he potentially brings to the table. So we expect that next season he's going to be a guy. And I think it's just interesting to take that frame of reference, just because a lot of teams are not going with that approach anymore, right? You see a ton of teams saying, yo, we are going to spend top dollar on who's the best guys in the portal, and we're going to take 4 or 5 really good guys. You see LSU doing it. You see schools like Tech doing it. Miami's a school that's been doing it, right? Texas did it a year or two ago, and you see those guys replenish the ranks with proven commodities. and they hope that the chemistry, right, the mix of personalities can create success, and there's a certain level of teams doing that and having immediate success. It seems to me like OU is not taking that approach, and it feels like, coach is still treating this like a program where we develop most of our guys internally. I think it's kind of like the way Clemson does it and Dabble and those guys do it over there in South Carolina, where it's like, the program is bigger than any player. And so here's how I look at it. I don't know the answer, and I'm not going to pretend to
Mm.
know the answer. I am not in those weight room, sessions or the chalk talks that they're having, or I am not, with those guys running a Tuesday, Wednesday full padded practice, or bowl prep practices, seeing what they currently have. I just tell you this again. Here's here's the best way I can frame it, Barry. Um, Next season we're going to win 8 or 9 games, and BV will have, solidified his position as the HBC at the University of Oklahoma, or we won't. And if he does not, I think a from the AD down, they're going to have to rethink how we address the football program,
Oof.
because a lot of what we see happening and success following, we haven't done. And by the way, I'm cool with that. Like I'm okay with our coach saying, "Yo, I got faith in how we do it." The thing is, on Saturday we got to see the results, and that's just what it is. It's a result driven business. At a school like the University of Oklahoma, you got to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? You like, our university is accustomed to 10 wins. Our university is accustomed to ships. Our university is accustomed to AAs. Our university is accustomed to playoff berths and being a factor, right? Not playing Navy and finding a way to lose, you know, uh, going for two in a situation where you're in the toilet tissue bowl in Fort Worth. So, you know, it is what it is. I like some of the receivers. We can kind of dive into the, what they were able to attack there. I like the kid.
Yeah,
I
one
don't
of
know where
them is oh man, I posted him that I think one of them is a legitimate starting player. I think everyone else is fringe rotation, JJ Hester kind of guy.
with all due respect, ain't nobody in the receiver core safe. If any of those guys can start, if any of those guys know how to get open, read coverage, there's two reasons. Number one, there isn't a bunch of talent coming back. We lost four of our six receivers. I'd say four of our top six. Two of the six of the top guys are coming back. Number two, brand new OC. You got guys who may have had an advantage if it was their second or third season
Mhm.
in a system that a new guy doesn't. All of those guys are going to be coming in and starting off season, and I experienced a transition during an off season. They're going to start install in January. They're going to start install as soon as they start off season. They're going to take a portion of that off season workout time and start installing. And I'm not talking about like chalk talk. They're going to chalk talk too, but I'm talking about like part of the time we were in the indoor, the old indoor back in the 90s, where we were supposed to be running. Believe it or not, that first year, Leach had us lining up. We couldn't use footballs, but lining up, going over formations, lining up, talking about the
Mm.
depth of routes, lining up two high versus one high, lining up hot route versus zone versus man. We spent time that offseason doing that. And you know what happened the next offseason? We didn't do
What?
none of that. The
There you
install had
go.
already happened. So now we just ran, right? So I'm fairly confident that they're going to take this offseason, because the more exposure, reps, opportunities, that muscle memory is really important. Um, and so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see the portal guys at receiver. If any of those guys, the Arkansas guy, the Pine Bluff guy, we got 3 or 4 guys. If I'm any of them, I'm coming in with the expectation I'm starting. I'm taking a spot. You just have to. There were true freshmen. There are 2 guys, and both of them are coming off injuries, right? And there's going to be 4 or 5 positions available. Man, if you don't go in there, I would be pissed as the OC or as the receiver coach if these guys came in and say, "Oh, I'm gonna take a 2, or I'm gonna take a back seat." Man, I'm taking whoever position. That's the mentality we got to have. The offensive lineman from Stanford is a guy that I think can be a plus.
He's pretty legit. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The 2 tight ends, who knows? Again, I'm not going to speculate too much I am just gonna wait and see. At this point, I love my university. I'm gonna critique my truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna critique with my truth, I guess is the better way to say it. Um, and I do have faith in whatever philosophy BV is using. I'm not going to question his philosophy. I'm going to critique excuse my candor, I'm going to critique the shit out of the results come spring, come fall, come season. Oh, I have to, because damn it. Listen, when I was at OU, I loved Coach Blake as a man, as a leader, as a
Yeah.
guy, as an individual, as a person. The things he was doing behind the scenes, like, you had to respect a lot of the things he was doing. He was not a good coach. He was not a good HBC. He had his hands tied in some capacities. There were some things out of his control. He didn't get to pick all his coaches, but god dang it, I think he got to pick Joe Dickinson, and we whoa, he got to pick Rex Ryan too. He got to pick Rex Ryan too, and Rex Ryan had a damn good defense. But like, if you ask me, to a man, who was more impactful to my success as a ball player, and then watch this, Barry, my success as a man, the principles I learned from Bob Stoops. Life anymore in a capitalistic society. Here I am on my soapbox now.
Let's
Like,
go.
you got to learn how to win.
Yeah.
Bob taught me how to win. Bob taught me how to win. And I came from a wing program. My team played for championships in high school, and I was a 4.0 student. So I was a guy who, I wasn't out there slapdicking. But I got to tell you, college football was not an easy place to come from. A losing season to 7-5 to winning a natty, that is an identity shift. And so I pay respect to this day. I pay respect to what Jerry Schmidt, Steve Spurrier Jr., Mike Leach, Mangino, and Bob Stoops. Those dudes taught me how to win games. And I promise you, when the bullets were flying, it mattered. So BV, you know what I'm saying? All of the culture and the mission work and all the intangibles, I love it. I think it's a great aspect to. I think it's a great recruiting tool. Say, dog, at OU, gotta win games. Period. Period. And so that's really what it's going to boil down to me come spring and then come fall.
Yeah, you got to be able to go out and actually convert. And it feels like when you watch the team, and we'll use this to segue into Navy, and just shout out, by the way, to Sooner Nation tonight, breaking records on our live streams, well over 300, pushing 400. So thank you guys for hopping on. As always, the show brought to you by OU Insider, OUinsider.com. Go over there and get yourself a little membership, guys. Awesome content during the Mateer sweepstakes. They had all of the information that you could ask for with all of the other commitments. Giovanni Gibson was the name I was trying to think of earlier. DMAC at receiver. He's the only guy who I think stands a cut above the rest. And it's production, right? His numbers, even though he was at the lower level of competition, the numbers reflected a guy who is dominating at that level. So that's what you want to see, or who you want to pick up, especially if you go get a guy who, in this case, is not a Power 5 player. So I want to move on to the Navy game. And watching the game, it felt as if, and this is really to your point, it felt as if the team that we're watching currently as Sooner fans, this Sooner team they don't remember what winning feels like. They don't remember that they are a winning program. And yes, we're imprinting a lot of psychology onto the team, and we're not there to hear what's said. But when you watched some of those Stoops teams, and I think 2014 is a great example of a team where it wasn't a good year at all. That was it led to the hiring of Lincoln Riley, and it was a kind of a milestone year in terms of Bob's, not doing well, but it turned into something positive for the program in the long term. But even that team with P. Ryan and with Cody Thomas late in the year, it still felt like any game they went into, you're Oklahoma and you should be able to win the game. And whether it's the Tyreek Hill play, it felt like there needed to be something.
Is that 2014?
That's
2014. Oh God.
So, and for Oklahoma, for them to feel so far away from that, DMAC, where they're going into a game against Navy. Yes, the portal has really pierced the team, but none of those receivers were playing anyway. They act like, and I remember on the broadcast they were bringing up OU has a ton of receivers out. None of those guys were playing, so it didn't matter. That was the team, save Jackson Arnold. The guys who were really missed were Stutzman and Bowman. That those were the two players who probably had the Stutzman for sure had one of the bigger impacts on not having. But talk to me about that in that vein, right? Of watching a program where you saw the team play inspired when Stoops coached them in what, 22 when they played Oregon, or 21.
Yep.
And it just felt like that team had a certain thing about them, right? They were coming off of losing Riley as coach, and now Stoops has taken the reins. And when you watched them, it felt like they had that zest for winning, right? Like they were going to win the game. Talk about what you saw out of the team, and then we'll dive into some of the internals as far as how the game went.
Here's my biggest issue with the team. And by the way, I feel like if I play on that team, I would probably not be liked by a lot of my teammates, because there was a certain level of edge. And by the way, I was a receiver. Like I was a, you know what I'm saying? Like I was a wide receiver, but I'd knock a linebacker's ass off if I had to go in and stock block. Like I'm going in there and I'm coming, and with different rules when I played. I'm catching a ball. Go watch the national championship game. I'm catching the ball, and after I catch the ball, I'm talking smack back to the defense. Like I'm not yes sir, no sir to the opponent when the bullets is fly. I'm not doing that. That's just not how we were as a team. We didn't do that. K-State would punk you if you did that. Nebraska will punk you if you did that. Texas will punk you if you did that. FSU, I told you the first play of the game, they literally slam Antoine and Curtis Fagan on the ground. Totally illegal. No flags. Me and Andre Wolfog are looking at each other like, bet. That's how they playing? Okay, that's how we got to play. We have no dogs. Name one. We have good players. We have physical dudes, right? We got guys that'll go out there and make a play or be physical in tackling. We have no dogs. And I'm not talking about dirty, cheap, you know what I'm saying, punks. We didn't have a lot of punks in our team, but we had dogs. I wish somebody would go do something to one of my teammates on a play. We own you, bro. And you gonna know. Like it's not even an option. And I'm watching that game very closely, and I'm like, okay, we jump out 14-0. We'll obviously talk about Hawk and some of the stuff the offense did and didn't do. We'll talk about some of the adjustments the Navy defense made, and then all of a sudden we can't even run a freaking play anymore. But I'm watching. I'm like, I don't see nobody out there letting it be known that we owe you and we coming to give you problems for 60 minutes. And that's a problem for me. And here's the thing that I gotta continue with, Barry. When I was at OU, BV liked that. That's why he put me on punt team. BV was a guy like, yeah, D-Mac, I see you. Like, because BV on the sidelines, like I said, we had full-fledged arguments, co-DCs beefing with each other. Some games, the offense and defensive coaches is cussing. I'm not cussing each other out, but on each other necks.
Oh, yeah.
Some game, Bob doing this, da-da-da-da-da. You see this happening because they coaching people in the box out. Like, it was, look, you know what I'm saying? It was some action. Man, they look like they out there playing intramurals. It looks like intramurals to me. Like it, and the momentum wave. It looks to me like when something goes bad, everybody's head drops. Everybody's, you know what I mean? They physicality lessens, and I just hate. I hate. I do not coexist well in places where we let other things control us. I'm a big believer in control what you can control. I'm a huge believer in that. By the way, I'm a big believer in don't spend more than 2% of your energy on things you can't control, but give 100% to everything you can control. And when I see scenarios where someone out physicals one of our guys, and what you can control is get up and be like, I got you on the next one. But instead you get up and you like, oh, bro, that right there is the only weakness you need to see for as an opponent. Oh, I got him. Coach, like we played Texas 2000 season, Red October. Quentin Jammer's our first round draft pick. He's their field corner. I think Dre whoops him. Dre whoops him on an early TD. We got him. Well, we got him. Then we start running jet sweeps, and I'm playing slot, and I'm like, Dre, don't even just run a slant. We're literally taking our man and running our man. Boom! Like we're taking two DBs out because they're out of the game.
Yeah.
Listen, they were pussies. If you punch them back, they were punks. This is Texas. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Texas, right? And so we knew that. That was something we took to our advantage. I look at our team and I see that, like, we got that. We got that. I smell. I smell. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like the opponent
Yeah.
says to us. And here's the thing, coach has to own, Barry. You are the identity of your team. And so when I look at our games, by the way, you could pretty much say so all game. You could say Danny's a guy. Danny's an emotional guy, but I've seen Danny get worked sometimes and kind of be quiet. You know what I'm saying? But Danny is also a guy who I've seen him make the cerebral play that needed to be made. So I want to give Danny his props. But I'm watching the game yesterday, and it just felt to me like, and I get it, bowl game, not a lot of inspiration. You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you this: we were hot dogging it against LSU, and then when they punched us in the mouth, we folded like an envelope.
Mm,
Folded like an envelope. We were giving Missouri everything they could handle, and then all of a sudden, that last drive, we did every possible thing you could do to give that game away. And so those are the things that you are your resume. I watch the game and I look at the energy. I mean, the offensive game plan is trash. Our offensive system sucks so much. Barry, how many games? Year one,
oof.
our first year doing this podcast when we didn't even have video. How many games into the season did I say, bro, this offense is Mickey Mouse? How many games did it take?
I think it was first conference game. It might have been last non-con game.
Third game of the season, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the offense? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we have a cool plan A, and if they, pivot, if they make an adjustment, we just have stuff. We don't
Yeah.
have anything off of our plan A. And so 3 years in, I am so happy that, and by the way, the more I watch Arbuckle, it's gonna be fun to actually have an offense to really dive into and nuance and talk about some of the things that they're gonna do because the last 3 years have been bad. And so I take that with a grain of salt. If we didn't have Arbuckle, some of these guys from other schools, we got a bunch of folk from other schools, by the way. I don't know what schools you guys are from, but salute. I appreciate you guys for
There you
patronizing
go.
us. It's a lot of guys in here from other schools tonight. If we didn't have Arbuckle, I'd be very concerned
Yeah.
because the offense we currently roll out on every given Saturday sucks. It's trash. It truly is. And I think that's the biggest piece of why we weren't successful the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think there are some positives, and this is where we get into the nitty gritty a little bit. One, looks like Jake Roberts can actually catch and hold on to the football, which was great. And honestly, man, his blocking, maybe it's like, if Bauer Sharp is like a 2 in the blocking category, the Roberts is probably like a 4.5, 5, right? He's a solid player, but man, he caught the ball so much better. So that was good to see. Hawkins looked like and played like he was a little more confident in what he was doing, especially early in the game. Granted, it's Navy. None of these athletes are the athletes that you're seeing against Auburn, Tennessee, LSU. He didn't play against LSU, but none of the South Carolina for sure, right? Think about it, he hadn't played really meaningful minutes in a game since South Carolina, and that
Yep.
defensive line was just all over him. But to his credit, he's made it very apparent, DMAC, that he's fully committed to the program. It does seem to be that he's got some of that old school in him, and you knew about his dad, and just the kind of player he was, right, and the kind of guy that he was. So it probably is a little bit of that chip off the old block deal. You think Hawkins does have some of that kind of competitiveness in him, that fire in him, but we just haven't had a chance to see it yet because there's not been an opportunity there where he's been entrusted with the offense. Coming in, it does appear and I'm not trying to rhyme here, that Mateer has a little bit of that. It does appear that he's the kind of guy who can maybe bring some of that energy where that honestly, you go back to 2014, DMAC, and not to circle back again, but I think this matters when you talk about just the team having a fire in their belly, quote unquote, when it comes to winning. And you watch the team at 14 versus bringing Baker in. And yes, it was Baker's play that mattered, but man, that Tennessee game,
Yep.
it was a lot about his leadership
Yep.
and about that was the first time since probably what 2012 really where it felt like OU wasn't going to lose the game. It felt like OU had a player, and I think this is what you're getting at. Those teams that you were on and those teams that Baker played on and Bradford, it felt like they had guys where the fans were watching, and you guys comment if you agree. That guy's not going to let us lose this game. That guy's not going to let this happen. That guy is going to make a play. He's not going to let the play come to him. He's going to go out there and make something happen. And it felt like OU has just lost that. And I think bringing in Mateer is maybe even more important just for that fact. And I think when OU goes to the portal, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because they are going to have to on the defensive side of the ball, it's almost more important that they bring in a guy who's got some of that nasty to him, some guy who has already been developed in the same vein as a Torrance Marshall, as a Lance Mitchell. And I think Pasha Jackson was brought in that same year, who's a little more kind of fun and gun, but it helped with the team. It helped get you guys to where you needed to be. But circling back, Michael Hawkins looked as if he had gotten some solid work, still constrained by the offense. But talk about what you saw from him, if there's any hopefulness in his game continuing to improve and sitting a year behind Mateer.
I like him. I think we're at one of the best twos in America. So the thing about Little Hawk is, number one, I think he's shown enough to show that if he needed to take the reins, he could. Think about all the things he had working to his detriment this season, whether it be no quarterback coach for half the year, an offensive scheme that was non-existent until Ole Miss. Obviously, an offensive scheme that even when Joe John took over was Mickey Mouse. His receivers were hurt. The offensive line was decimated and inexperienced. And it sounds like I'm making a laundry list of excuses, but oh yeah, by the way, kids are true freshmen. Right? To go out there and do what he did. We had 7 balls dropped. By the way, somebody asked, hell no, I didn't drop 7 balls. If I dropped 7 balls, I wouldn't have played. I probably dropped in my career 3 balls. 3 balls in my career. And granted, I played 2 years and two years and 2 games. I had concussion my junior year after 2 games. But hell no, I didn't drop no damn 7 balls. What? I would have been on scout team had I done. We had too much competition. Dude, straight up, you're gonna lose. If you dropped a ball, you weren't playing the rest of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like straight up, there were games where like if you drop one, that's it. And so I look at Hawk and I'm excited about his development. I think it's a great thing for him. I think Hawk's a guy who could portal out and go to, I don't know, a solid, Minnesota or whatever, right? Some P4 school. I think he's a P4 starter and have some level of success, but I think he wants to be a guy who wants to be big time. I know Pops. Pops was there at my last season. 02 is my last season. That's his first season. I remember all his speed and his by the way, super competitive. He wanted to go against everybody as a true freshman, and we're like, bro, take your little ass over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's levels to this. You know what I'm saying? It ain't your turn yet. But you can see Lil Hawk has that in him. I think he's a guy sits behind Mateer. See, Mateer is literally coming into his system, right? Again, I love the analogy of Bake. Bake went from Tech to OU, which had a very similar offense, which Link is a guy who had, was a disciple of Leach. So when Baker comes to OU, it's not so much about him learning the system. It's just learning the culture, right? Learning the climate. And then Baker says, I'm an alpha. I got this, coach. And boom, Baker immediately allowed that to infiltrate the team. God, if Mateer can do that. By the way, it's kind of trash that we gotta hope he can, but that's what makes this hire a wise hire. You bring in the OC who has his QB who already knows the stuff. If receivers are smart enough just to know their landmarks, it's too high, one high, and hot. That's what it is. You got to learn too high, one high, and hot. If they learn how to get to the landmarks in those places, receivers are pretty plug and play. If Beaton Bow can, and that's a big if.
Yeah.
His O line played like shit yesterday, especially in the run game. And they made one freaking adjustment. They went to a double 2-eye. They left the center uncovered, and we could no longer run the freaking football. Pisses me off that we would like that's a high school,
Didn't Missouri do the same thing? It
I don't
wasn't.
remember. I
Yeah.
just know they were in a 0 and a 3, and then they went to a double 2-eye, and they left the center
Yeah.
uncovered, and we just could no longer run. They kind of left a backer up. But anyway, Hawk is going to be a value add, bro. I mean, anybody who has issues with Hawk running, I think he threw for 250. He had 7 drops. He had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. It wasn't a phantom call on the TD, but it's a ticky-tack hold on his 58-yard touchdown that they call back, where he showed his 4.4 speed again. He beat everybody to the end zone. He's a true freshman. Oh, man, I'm excited about him. You put that kid on ice for a year, you let him hit the weight room, you let him like learn how to stretch and do all the things quarterbacks need to be in the hips, the shoulders, and all that good stuff. He watches behind Mateer. Hopefully we're starting to put 50 up on people again, and he gets to play 3 or 4 games as the red shirt, and when he comes in, it could be like the Baker Kyler years where the backup's more athletic than the starter. You know what I'm saying? 18, I think that's the 17-18 season, where when Kyler comes in, you're in more trouble. It's a setup for him to, if he does this right, this could set him up for the NFL. I'm putting the cart way before the horse. This is a huge lens look at, but the talent the kid possesses, he has a live arm. He's obviously, has receiver talent at quarterback. And just what he was able to show he could do in a very bad situation, there's a high arc for him. And then I think it sets up perfect for Mateer to come in, no threat to take his job, right? And so he can kind of put, Hawk under his wing, teach him, show him, coach him up, and then come into next season. Mateer's off to the NFL. Hawk is in a position where he can be the guy, and then we got some of the younger pups coming up. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect scenario for Hawkins, because he's obviously not fully there yet, and bringing in Mateer gives you this kind of honestly a transitional year for Venables to even keep his job. Because I think if Hawkins is your guy going into next year, like how confident are you feeling about that? If Hawkins has to be the man going into next season, even with an Arbuckle, that's why getting Mateer was just so stinking critical. I want to talk a little bit before we get out of here, DMAC. A lot of the defensive players and I've seen more here since we've been on the air, since the announcement of Ali leaving, have announced their commitment to Oklahoma and remaining there. And, Ali never really got a chance to show what kind of recruiter he was, what kind of, schemes in big games. And we also know that Venables is a huge piece in that. And maybe that is a factor, right? Maybe Ali looks at where he's at and says it's going to be really hard to get out of this shadow of Venables, and I just need to go make my own imprint somewhere else, build my own system, do my own thing. And maybe that was a big piece of why he left. You never know, right? Different reasons for different guys. But talk about your perspective from as a former player, as a guy who's looking at the program. Give the pitch, right? You sort of did it offensively when OU was looking for the OC search, but give the pitch as to why Oklahoma defensive players currently playing on that side of the ball need to stay true to the situation, need to remain Sooners, and not be so quick to hit the button on that transfer portal. To just give the DMAC pitch for why they need to remain at Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. First things first, Megan, you're right. I did not. I apologize if I made it seem like you said I had 7 drops. I'm just speaking to somebody in the comments. No, I was just taking your reference point and saying you're damn right. I didn't drop 7 balls, so I didn't. I didn't think that you said that. But no. Listen, any defensive player in America should want to come play at OU. The defense is plug and play. By the way, the defense, as shown by the last 2 seasons, our D line has opportunities to get money, showcase their talents, get 101s, penetrate, right? Get into gaps. Our backers are, I mean, BV, right? BV is one of the maestros. I think he has the most current Buckus Award winners in America as a DC and coach, right? I mean, he's got 4 or 5, or he's got quite a few. And then the DB is the only, and I want to speak to this because it irks my soul. I'm watching bowl games this bowl season, and as a receiver, I know what this feels like, and I see it happen in other games. I'm like, oh, it's tough. I don't think we play enough hard man, especially in money downs. You put a team in a position where you're going to play hard man. Let me give you an example. The 2 point conversion, right? Okay, so we're not going to do a lot of positional breakdowns on this pod. And I do want to speak to this. Um, the 2 point conversion, if you go watch the play, by the way, it's funny, Barry, they do
What?
exactly what I say we should have done many, 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 many games. How many times have you heard me say on a money down, play hard man and blitz
Oh,
into the throwing shoulder of the quarterback? How many
yeah.
times have you heard me say we should do
Oh,
that?
just about every other episode, and especially on the Chalk Talks, about every other episode that has been a through line on the show.
Go watch the play on the 2 point conversion. And a lot of people on Rivals and a lot of people on Twitter were asking me, like, what did they say? They were saying, um they were asking, hey Mackie, why wasn't the play successful? Or they were asking me, like, man, we should have done a rollout, we should have done misdirection. And when you're a defensive coach, right, you got to play the tendencies, you got to play, what's the likelihood of something happening on a 2 point play. A play that will traditionally work or give you a lot of options is a rollout, right? We put a young quarterback in a position where he can use his legs or he can use his arm, right? The touchdowns are roll out. He kind of rolls out and then he reverses field, be's a better athlete than everybody, and he throws it to Kearney. Well, on that play, you can tell their DC was saying, number one, we're not going to give them zones so they don't have anything pre-snap easy. Slant fade. You can take a slant fade, but that's a 50-50. Number two, we're going to blitz into his throwing shoulder because if they roll out, we're going to impede his ability to either roll out or
Mhm.
he's going to run right into a sack. Right. And of course, we don't roll out, which I hoped or wished. And now that's another conversation. Um, I don't hate that we went for two. I hate the play. We ran a double mesh with a curl in the back of the end zone. It's not the best play in the world. Whatever, right? They picked the play. The point is, uh, they put us in a bind where our quarterback says there's no, you know, easy pre-snap place that I can say that if I place the ball here, the zone will open up and the guy will be open. They played us man. And aside from playing as man, they blitzed into the field, which was Hawkins throwing shoulder. And of course, that's the guy who ends up getting the sack. Well, we don't. We don't. And if you ask me what's the biggest issue I have with Coach BV's defense, and I said it since we were players, whenever we were getting to a key situation in a game, Mike Stoops would want to play. Um, blue and brown were man coverage on our defense. If we call blue or brown, that means the DBs were a man. And then BV wanted to do some type of zone blitz, inside dogs, cross dogs, whatever, right? That's a zone. Behind it, the backers are coming through some gaps, crisscrossing, whatever. And we see that far too often with our team. We give other teams pre-snap easy reads. And we have players, or we should have players, who are good enough to say, hey, in those key moments, we're going to lock up play man and make you beat us. Your Jimmys and Joes beat our Jimmys and Joes. And so, from a defensive perspective, yeah, I see people talking about Gentry. You're right, man. We absolutely need to get him healthy. And I think we,
Oh yeah.
I can't speak too much to it, but I've heard good news. If you guys, if you haven't, go back and listen to our pod about the receivers and the medical situation that I was able to get firsthand information on what happened with the receivers and the medical folk. Um, Gentry's one of the guys who could have used the same excuse the receivers used and didn't. If you know, you know. Um, but I just think that if you're gonna go out and recruit 6'2" dudes, you know what I'm saying? You need to put those dudes in positions, long arms, quick guys. You need to put those guys in positions to play physical. You don't always want to be in a read and react situation because when you're reacting, someone else has the momentum. So I say all that to say this. Um, I have another thing to say. My other issue, we lose the game for a lot of reasons. I blame a lot of it on offense. I'm not a big blame guy, but I got to tell you guys, our scheme is trash. It's absolute trash, and so a lot of that are things you can really easily see are problematic. But this is the thing that I don't think a lot of people noticed, and it pissed me off earlier in the game. I posted about it on Rivals 30 seconds before they scored a 95-yard touchdown. We
Mm,
absolutely positively substitute too much in the game. I get the whole I want to have a two deep of starters. Jaron Kanik played one possession. His possession was two plays. The second play was a 95-yard touchdown.
yeah.
On that play, he's the play side. Well, he's the middle backer. They run eye candy action to option action. He's literally watching the play. On that play, no one touches him. On that play, he touches no one. On that play, the quarterback runs straight through the play side A gap for a 95-yard touchdown. A lot of people are saying, hey, that guy was slow as molasses. I want you guys to think about football and how it works. The quickest way from one point to a next is a straight line. There are two players on the defense, aside from the D line, whose responsibility is to attack the football inside out. There's two players. It's the middle linebacker, it's the, and it's the middle of the field safety. Go back and watch the play. On that play, both Kanik and you guys ready for it? Another two. Boganowski, true freshman, stud. He's gonna be a stud. He's gonna be a stud. But you're in a game. You're up 7, or I don't know if that's their first touchdown or their second touchdown. It doesn't matter. You're in a game where it's still a game. Go watch the play. Boganowski's in. Kanik is in. PJ is in. Strong is in. You've
Yeah.
got like 4 or 5 twos. We just got a huge punt. We've got them on the 2-yard line, and we're playing chances by giving a bunch of twos. That possession? Hell nah. You need to have your dogs in there going for their jugular, trying to get a safety, punking them. Because on the play, PJ is the edge defender. He doesn't squeeze it like Ford did all game. Ford's killing that play early in the game because he squeezes it. On that play, it's a hard play for the middle backer because the middle backer wants to go with flow. But your A gap to B gap to alley and Kip and McKenzie stayed A gap long enough, right, to kill it. The quarterback should have run right into Kanik. Kanik's looking at the eye candy, and he literally runs
Yeah.
right inside of him. And then let's talk about the run, right? You know why no one could catch him? Because he ran straight through the middle of the defense,
Straight through the middle.
hauling ass, didn't have to step, didn't have to stutter. Everyone else is running at an angle and then sees him running, creasing the A gap. Guys, I'm not making excuses. Somebody should have caught his ass. But it's not easy to be in a back pedal or a 45 and then somebody's already running full speed straight ahead. You've got to get out your hips, you've got to turn your
Yeah.
shoulders, and you got to recover. And then of course you have some receivers downfield. But when you look at that play philosophically, Barry, I ask myself, why the hell is Strong, PJ, Kanik, Boganowski just on the first rub of it? I go on Rivals and I text. I say, "Oh, look, they got Kanik in." I literally I posted in Rivals. I'm like, "Oh, they got Kanik in. Let's see if he got any better." Like I'm literally posting, like, "Let's
Yeah.
see if he got any better." The first play, they take the middle backers and they put them kind of like in a bear front, where they get like 2 or 3 yards. So now I literally am putting the spotlight, like, "Hey, let's watch Kanik," and then they run the action. A gap quarterback pulls it, and he's inside of them. And they've ran similar plays early in the game. It's just McKenzie or Kip or Carter knew their keys and were not slow to react. And so but I mean, they got some good plays out of it with those guys. But you guys just can't imagine you're playing football and somebody is sprinting as fast as they can and you're facing the opposite direction and you've got to turn around and then try to go catch them. It's different than you run a sweep and the backside guy can take an angle 40 yards away. He's running through the middle of the field. That's the hardest, most difficult space to go and catch somebody. And B, you would know this because
Oh yeah,
you're a sports science
I'm
guy.
already running the math in my head. You
Yeah,
can't is
yeah, that's
if he's a 4.9, unless your guy who's on the outside the either hash is a 4.25, and if he's got 20 or so yards of grass, you're not catching him. And honestly, in that case, you maybe catch him at like the 20 or the 15. Like think like Trey Brown did in the Big 12 championship. That's a good example of a player with elite speed running a guy down. But OU doesn't have a player on their defense with Trey Brown speed
no,
at the moment. Like
no.
not even close. So in that case, OU's got a bunch of 4-4, 4-5 guys at defensive back playing that position, and it showed. And they had a chance like right at the goal line to take him down, but by then it was too late. Yeah, as you were talking about that, I was already like running like where would they have to be? Because you're right, the angle makes all the difference. The angle is everything. If it's a straight up race and it's even and he's caught, right? Or if he goes out on the outside, even if he gets down the field on the outside, he's still caught. But because he went up the middle and both of your fastest players at corner are outside the hashes, you can't get there. It just takes too much time, and you're not going to have a fast enough 40 to be able to do it. Trey Brown would have probably caught him at the 10. He'd have probably had enough speed to get him at the 10. But
You need a track guy. You need a track guy. You need a
100%.
guy who's a track guy to go hawk him, and it's hard to do. But anyway, let me just touch on a couple
Go for it.
things in the game. Things that really upset me. The offensive scheme, right? They line up in a traditional 40 front. We run right through it. They adjust. They literally go to a 2-eye, double 2-eye. We can't run the football anymore. We don't run any outside scheme things. We don't run enough zone read, easy reads for the quarterback, and then read with RPO a nice little spot. We ran a spot a couple times. You run a replace route with a route to the flat, so you can just read the flat defender. We ran it a couple times. We needed to run it more. But the offense, here's our offense in a nutshell. The old offense. We had a scheme, and then off of that scheme, I spoke about this Levy's year. We only had plays. Let me give you an example. Old school Leach would be ace flip 96 Z post, right? Ace flips the formation. 90 tells us the series, right? So we know this is a drop back series. 6 is the pass scheme for the receivers. We're running double curls with a post, right? The tag Z post, we tag the Z, right? That's a offensive game plan. Because that same game plan, we can switch it up to 96 X curl, Y out. There are different things we can do. We can layer off of it, right? We can run F delay. We can run H option, all these different things. Whereas Levy's offense, they have some basic stuff where they have schemes, but everything else is just a play. What's a play? A play would be like, we're going to run Chicago left. Let's say Chicago left is levels. You want a 5-yard drag, a 10-yard in, and a corner route. Well, if you need to do something off of that, right? There isn't is it like, I don't know, New York, right? Is it, you know what I mean? Like there isn't a basis of how to build more onto what you're doing. Yeah. And so when you just have stuff, it's like, let's say we need to run 96, but this time we need the X to run an out. We can still call the exact same play, ace flip, 96, F out. Now everybody knows exactly what to do. The tag is just different, right? Versus Chicago is one word telling everybody what to do. Now the old line is like, if you say Toronto, like is Toronto the same as Chicago? There isn't depth to it where you can layer and add and piecemeal things that you need to piecemeal. And so we need to get out of that. We need to get out of that because, with our offense, 60 series was quick game, 70 series was rollout, 80 series was action, 90 series was drop back. Like, it was very easy for us to know based upon the series what the expectations were, and you can layer things in. That offense never had it. Count the box, we're going to run an edge screen. Count the box, we're going to run inside zone. If teams were able to figure out your 3 or 4 bread and butter plays, they could easily, all right, disguise and or make a move pre-snap and tear your offense up. Guys, it's a huge disadvantage. And I think it's going to even the playing field next year to have Arbuckle who brings an actual scheme where there's a series and there are tags and there are double moves off of things and different nuanced piecemeal components to the offense that the guys will be able to layer and depend on. All right, so let's get rid of that. Receivers, terrible, 7 drops. Big time plays drop. Big play drops. And by the way, a couple of them bread baskets. Somebody was like, Hawk threw the ball real late to Kearney. No, Dodo Brain, it was a blown coverage. He was backside. That was not a rhythm throw where Kearney, he's running that seam route and he ends up throwing it to them. If that were a rhythm route, it's a touchdown. Hawkins is looking to the play side. He actually has good vision to see.
It's a good play. Yeah.
It's really good of him to actually see that happen, which is why it's underthrown. The flea flicker, it's in Ragan's hands. I mean, he throws it right there. Ragan's, I don't know. I don't know why he dropped it, but he drops it. Obviously, we ran 2. So here's another issue I have. This is what happens when you don't have a real scheme. Sorry, Joe John's a Sooner. And I don't know, people might hear this. I don't care. Mike Leach, we'd run offense. And let's just say we were running trips and we're running a screen to the running back. Because that's what they did, right? On back-to-back plays, OU schemed up 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, and they ran a screen to Franklin. He dropped the first one. They ran the exact same play, little different formation. He dropped the second one. You ready? All Mike Leach would have done is said, hey, we're running F screen. Mackey, going at F. Like, why would you run a screen where pre-snap you're throwing it to a running back and it's not like a running back who's acting like he's going to block, right? Sure. That's different. You can't put a receiver at that. They're going to be like, yo, receiver. But the running back was lined up in a position to act like a receiver. Why didn't we just put the receiver at? I don't care if it's a running back screen. Mike Leach would have been like, yo, Mackey, go to F and run the screen. The first time Franklin dropped the ball, this very next play, go watch the play. He's lined up in a slot position. Just put a receiver there. Blows my mind, pisses me off, drives me crazy. Okay, let me get on my soapbox. Let me cook for a minute.
Let's go.
Count the box edge screen. Count the box edge screen. We've run that shit for 3 years. How long have I hated that damn count the box edge screen? I hate it, right? We run count the box edge. People are like, what is that? It's that screen where they catch the ball and as soon as they catch it, they throw the screen. What they're doing is counting the box. And if the box is heavy, we should have numbers on the outside, right? That in theory, that's what's happening. 2 things come to mind very quickly. The first thing is personnel. Why the hell are we running count the box edge screen with Jacobson as the blocker? Are you freaking kidding me? The smallest framed guy we have is running the edge screen and is the blocker? That blows my mind. By the way, he got punked every time. I feel bad for the kid. Of course, he's got short arms. He's a little dude. He's going to get punked. Second thing, we have, so same scenarios. We have him running the seam routes. When you run a seam route, typically, what is the body style of an individual running a seam route? Or watch this, Barry. What position typically runs a seam? Do you know, like a seam, right? It's a skinny post of the hash. When you typically have if you could pick the player who's going to run that,
usually it's a bigger body.
It's a tight end. It's a big
tight end, a carry on, somebody like that.
Bro, we're running the seam with Jacobson. Jacobson needs to be running crossing routes, quick slants, quick outs.
Which is crazy because it gives you advantage against backers and makes it an easier throw for the quarterback to get it. Like that's
a bigger target. It's a bigger target. Mackie, why are you complaining? Here's why I'm complaining. Because we know we're going to that pre-snap, which means personnel
Mm,
wise, you're picking who you're going in that particular possession. When you see, we throw it to Jacobson and the guy big boys them, they don't call a flag, which I don't think they deserve to call a flag. But yes, people are saying tight end, why exactly? But I'm just asking myself. By the way, I like the play design, or I like the call. I guess I should say. I hate the personnel. You mean to tell me, Joe John, you're calling a seam route? By the way, it's man to man. You're gonna pick the smallest dude to go like that's the guy the safety can cover. Swap them. Put. By the way, in the fourth quarter they
yeah,
did it. Fourth quarter they did it. They put carry on inside the hash, and he got 3 or 4 more
yeah,
catches. I'm like those are the things that drive me insane. We run the backside post to Raggins. By the way, guys, you guys know me. Go back and watch the game. I don't hate the call. I don't hate the call. We run it in the first quarter, I believe, first time. But I said, let me watch this technique. Guys, when you want to run a backside post, the only thing you have to do is make the DB get out of his hips. It's the only thing you want. By the way, if you're slow, you just run a slower route. But the one thing you have to do is get him out of his hips. Go watch. I don't remember the exact play. I haven't watched the game twice yet. But Raggins run, and I heard Raggins is a 10-4 guy, super fast, supposedly. It doesn't matter how fast you are if your technique is trash. Every time he runs that backside post, he's sticking 5 yards before he gets to the DB. He has no angle.
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah,
He has no
that's
angle.
bad tech. Yeah, I've noticed
All
that
you have to
too
do
with
is
him.
push his technique. It really widen him, and then you're going to be wide open. It's a touchdown if he simply knows how to run the route. Um, so he runs it the first time. And the DB covers it because he sticks his foot in the ground 5 yards in front of the DB. The DB just speeds turns on top of him, and he takes the play away. We ran it 3 more times, and
Yeah.
I'm like Coach Jones. I know you know your stuff. I think he's in the box. I'm pretty sure he's in the box. Like you see, he's sticking his foot in the ground 5 yards too early. Why do we keep running it with him? Those are the things that take an offense that could be decent, could be competent, and it makes it bad. It makes it incompetent because you're not doing the technique that's required in order to win. I think Raggins could have scored, but
Oh yeah.
His technique is, and he started all year. By the way, young man, I was a red shirt, but still, by the end of the year, I knew the damn position. There's no excuse for him to have as gotten many reps as he's gotten over the course of this year and still run a post where he's 5 yards in front of the DB and he's sticking his foot in the ground. You're never going to get the ball unless you run it like a dig. If there's any safety,
Yeah.
you're covered. If there's not a safety, you got to run it like a dig because the DB's on top of you. And so I look at the offense. If I'm Joe John, I am cussing or I am reprimanding Emmett the first time. I'm saying, bro, we're trying to score a touchdown. This is how conversations will go with us, right? Let's say it's me. I run the backside post. I stick my foot in the ground entirely too early. I get to the sidelines. Mangino comes to me or Long comes to me and they say, hey Mackie, go meet Skip Prairie on the phone. The beautiful thing about our chain of command was your first time was with your position coach. Like if you screwed up the first time, Bob would never get at you. Bob was
Okay.
doing what he was doing. Okay. I go to the phone. It's Spurrier. Mackie, what the hell are you doing? You don't want to score a touchdown? I'm like, what are you talking about, coach? Bro, we're trying to throw you the backside post. You need to push his technique. You need to get him out of his
Yeah.
hips. And I'm like, coach, what do you mean? I'm in the box. I can see it. You're pushing it. You're not pushing it far enough, right? He's still 5 yards on top of you. You got to get it to 2, get it to 1. Okay, coach. All right, Mackie, can you do it? Yeah, coach, I can do it. All right, we're going to come back to you. Be ready. Like that's how that conversation would go.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
then 2, 3 possessions down the road, right? Coach Bob would come to me like, hey Mackie, we're gonna run that play. So I know, like, oh shit, they're gonna run it. You know what I'm saying? So like I am geared up. Okay, I gotta get to 2 yards, I gotta push his technique, I gotta widen him, I gotta get him out. It's a touchdown. But we ran it 4 times. And the fourth time we ran it, he was doing the same thing. Barry,
Hmm.
that's a big the position coach, it's problematic. But the OC, Mike Leach, would never. Spurrier, to all your receivers, sit their asses down. I'm going double tight end, double back.
Jeez.
If you can't do your job, you're not going in.
Yeah.
Like that was the environment. And so it required you to do your job. We'd literally be on the sideline. Kurt Fagan would be like, yo, Mackie, what I do wrong? Like we're critiquing each other, coaching each other, helping each other, supporting each other because we wanted to do it right. I saw Raggins run that route 3 times. I don't know if it was 4, but it was minimally for sure 3 times. And on the third one, his technique was still bad. It's why he looks slow to us. People are like, he's not fast. No, his
Yeah.
technique sucks. That's what it is. His technique sucks, right? And so those things offensively, like I don't know. I mean, Joe John played in the NFL. Joe John ran link stuff. Like Joe John knows. I know these guys. Like I
Joe
said,
John caught the seams that,
Joe John damn same,
that we're
damn right.
talking about.
And so I know.
Crazy.
By the way, the haters, the haters. I can't wait. All you guys from other schools, and I can't play no more. I'm an old man. I got salt and pepper beer.
Yeah, yeah.
But damn it, I know what school I went to. I know what that interlocked OU mean. Y'all think we done winning championships? Y'all wilding. Y'all. It's cute. It's real cute that you get to talk, and you know what I'm saying. We're gonna let you talk. But we ain't done. But with the real OC, who's going to really pay attention to the nuances of the positions and is really going to be the alpha in the room who knows the stuff inside and out. That was the thing about Leach too, Barry. Like Leach knew his offense. There wasn't some other person trying to tell him how or why to do it. Let me give you another story. So Leach had this thing. Let me just call play. It would be like Ace Open 92, Y Sale, X PCP. And we'd be like, PCP, what the hell is that? And so Leach was like, Mackie, PCP stands for post corner post. What do you think that means? And I'd be like, you run I was like, how do you run a post corner post? Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? We would be like, what? How do you do that? And he would show us film of Kentucky. And he would show us the Kentucky guys. And I'm telling you, it was 3 dramatic sticks. It's you stem them inside, you stick for the post, and then you stick to the corner, and then you cut it sharp again. And when we would run it, if we didn't run it right, he would be like, get the hell out of here. That's not it. And I'd be like, coach, but I like Mackie, that's not it. And we watch it on film, and he'd be like, here, this is how you do it. Do it like this. And he'd be like, did you do it like that, like the film? And I'd be like, actually, it doesn't look like that. Like, no, it doesn't look like it, right? So, like, someone has to know the stuff and be the guy who's like, that's right, that's wrong, right? And I imagine Levy was that guy when it came to this offense because he learned it and pieced it from, Baylor and some of the other places, UCF, things like that, things of that nature. But I believe this offense we ran this year, there wasn't an expert, a master. I don't believe there was a master. And so the nuances, I heard BV say early in the year, like, was the out supposed to be 5 yards and stick or 5 steps and stick? Was the slant a 3-step slant or a 5-yard slant, right? Like Leach could tell you 92 is 4 yards. X shallow is 2 yards, right? Quick slant, 3 steps. Hot slant, look now. Like he knew everyone's role to the T, and we had to learn it to that level in order to be successful. That's how the ball comes out. You know exactly where it's going to be. It's on the right shoulder. You can catch it and get upfield versus people are looking like deer in the headlights when the bullets start flying. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing next season with a real OC. No disrespect to Joe John. I think Joe John's going to do a good job some other place, with all due respect. But I do know Arbuckle and Mateer are going to be guys who can tell everybody where they're supposed to be and how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, and I think, man, that just sets the expectation for the room, and it almost helps, like, the fact that Leach was brought in, everybody brand new was brought in. It's those situations, juxtaposed to the way Oklahoma handled this one by retaining so many guys. You got to know that there was some ego involved of like, no, I know my stuff about this system. I know you know your stuff about that, but I know this. I want to run what I want to run. You got to know that there was some dissension in the room, when it came to that kind of thing, and bringing in a guy like Arbuckle who knows the whole thing upside down, forwards and sideways. It sets the expectation for this is what we're going to demand as a team and as an offensive side of the ball. And, just from things that we've heard from players, there's got to be much more buy-in on that side of the ball, and Arbuckle feels like he brings that, especially if the receivers feel like they're going to have some opportunities, right? They watch the film, they see how many easy balls were caught. The edge screen that you're talking about, it was the Baylor in the heyday of Baylor ran that thing to perfection, and they always got 2, 3, 4 easy yards all the time and would just move you down the field. They did it to Oklahoma multiple years, and they did the things you were talking about. They were mindful of personnel, who's catching the ball, and if anybody wants to doubt the personnel issues, all you got to do is listen to every podcast where we're bringing up whether it's Bauer Sharp catching certain plays, whether it's not having certain backs in. I know a lot of people have talked about us bringing up Murray tonight, and I don't even know if it needs to be done. I think we've really exhausted the running back rotational issues. It was surprising to see Robinson not get as many carries as we've expected him to get. And Gavin Sawchuk at this time is not an NFL running back. Xavier Robinson has a chance to be. And to me, you play your best guy. It goes right into what you're saying with them putting in the twos on the goal line, right? It's the same idea. What are you doing that for when you have a game that's the outcome is in the balance? When you're up 14-0 and got a little momentum, maybe you give your starters a spell for a series, maybe 2 if they do well, but then you get them back in and you go up 21-0.
Or 1-2, right?
Yeah,
maybe you sneak a 2 in. You don't put 4 twos at every level. That's a mistake. And I think BV would own that. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, I got to say something.
Go for it.
I wish Miami 2000 would have tried to see.
I saw that comment.
I wish them boys had a chance. They went to UW and lost. Don't be talking about no woulda, shoulda, couldas. They beat Florida State on a missed field goal that they should have made, and they went to UW and lost. We would have beat that ass, period. Shocky's an Oklahoma boy. We hung out a ton early 2000s. We used to hang out a lot in Miami. We used to kick it in Miami. Shocky talks crap with the best of them. Shockey don't scare nobody. By the way, Shockey wanted to be a Sooner. Trent Smith got his spot, which that's debatable on who was a better player. Shockey was a dog. Yeah. But no. Miami 2000. I don't care. Cool. Go. We had this conversation. Go back.
I'll have to pull up the post. We have an Instagram post where guys, we go over DMAC. Yes.
National award winners, All-Americans.
Almost draft picks at certain spots.
Nah, they kicked our ass because they had the offensive draft picks.
I'm talking about just defense. I'm talking about just
defense. It was we had more.
Yes. Yeah. I'm talking just defensively.
Don't do that. Whoever that is, buddy, you cute, man. What's your name? I don't know. Your little comment is cute. The 2000 Miami team would have beat that ass. Period. How dare you say we the only team went undefeated? Don't do that.
And the 2000 Florida State offense was better than
ridiculous. Yeah. And they couldn't. I don't want to hear about Snoop Minutes either. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. 2000 season, you gotta let me have that, bro. Matter of fact, let me go grab my ring. That's me.
Look at that. Who they have? They have what? Travis Minor, Anquan Bolden, who was like,
bro. They had Snoop Minutes, Anquan Bolden, Javon Walker, Antris Bill. Like, bro, they have 4 NFL dudes at receiver. Like, watch out, relax. And they got shut down. They had the Heisman winning at the quarterback.
7-year NFL vet.
Nah, but that stuff is cute to me. That's this new generation. Like, we actually played the games. You know what I'm saying? And Miami had a point about, we beat Florida State, but you went to Washington and lost to Cody Pickens and Reggie Williams. That's the only 2 dudes they had. They had 2 dudes. And y'all lost. Man, y'all wouldn't be ready for us. We played K-State twice, beat them twice in Kansas. Beat the number 1 team in America was Nebraska. It was not FSU. It was not Miami. It was Nebraska. They came to Norman and got smacked. That whole revisionist theory because you watched that 30 for 30, that's cute. Them boys would have got touched that day. We would have literally had to hurt their feelings. Watch out. And we had dogs. Nobody would have been scared.
When is a 30 for 30 coming on the 2000 Sooner team?
When DMAC does it. I'm doing it. it.
We need that to happen. that to me was such like a that would be a very cool. I think it's just all of the parts that come together. And then the 30 for 30 would be interesting. Just seeing the coaches that came out of that time, right? Just think about the names who ended up becoming, having legendary offenses and defenses, and just the coaching circle that was created because of that. I think a 30 for 30 would be fascinating. You got Heupel, who's now coaching at Tennessee. You've got, like, the whole thing would be very interesting. The issue is you would definitely then you would need Heupel to be in it,
Hype would
and
do it for me.
he would
Hype
do
would do
that.
it. He do it in a
Man, we
second.
need to make that happen.
In a second, Hype would do it for his
Yeah,
bros in a second. Man, Hype is locked in. Let me
man,
say a couple other things.
go for it, man. We're about to
Here
get
we
off
go.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we got to jump off. Canic plays, but EPO isn't showcased. Stone isn't showcased. That's problematic. Mitchell isn't showcased. Those guys needed reps. Good, bad, or indifferent. Those guys needed reps. Mackey will be the guy that says it. And listen, guys, this is just our platform. I ain't coaching. I have my couple businesses I'm running, maybe in a couple years. And Barry knows this. If I coach, where's the first program I'm going to?
oh man, what, Tennessee?
Hell yeah, I'm going to go. Listen, I see what this. I
I
don't.
said that very
I don't.
quietly.
Hey, I don't want to be. I see what everybody's saying. We don't need no more OU retreads. I'm like, okay, I got you. Hey, no problem.
Yeah,
Like, no,
that's hilarious.
but
Man.
I
That's
just
funny.
I think there were tactical errors in not getting some of those guys showcased. I feel like we should have, if we're gonna do a tight end screen, a tight end jet sweep to Bauer Sharp, why can't we do it? Why can't we let the Mitchell kid have a chance? By the way, shout out to him for what he said on Twitter. I like what he said. I like that he's holding himself accountable. I like that he's not being a victim and making excuses. If you know, you know. You guys can go check out his Twitter. He made a comment that I think is very mature and the type of mentality that players need to have. X Rob needed to get 70% of the snaps. If you wanted to win if we wanted to win that game, there's not one play that Sawchuk. By the way, I'm a Sawchuk guy, but there's not one play Sawchuk made that X Rob couldn't. The touchdown that Sawchuk scores, X Rob could have scored that touchdown, right? But X Rob punishes their defense. He leans on the defense. He gives some intensity and some momentum to the offensive line because he can make something out of nothing. And we talked about this, he makes smaller guys make business decisions. Where Sawchuk gets to the second and third level, safeties is coming trying to knock his head off. They're not going to do that to X Rob. They're going to make a business decision. And so, in my opinion, right, I'm just speaking to our platform. X Rob needed to get 70% of the snaps if we wanted to win. Stone needed to be featured more. He needed to be featured more. ELP needed to be. He needed to play. He needed to play.
Yeah.
If Canic can go in there and get a possession, then ELP can go get some possessions. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we could not run the ball at all for 2.5 quarters, except for QB scrambles. So we did a couple of things where we got a little bit of air, but those are, again, I'm just saying this, Barry, and then we can cut out of here. I get it, coach. Like in 99, 2000 seasons where if you were going to transfer, it's a 1-year sit. If you're transferring within conference, it's a 2-year sit. It was really unprecedented to leave schools at that time just because it just wasn't something that was frequented. The day and age we are in, you just got to have a little bit more of awareness to the landscape in which you are in. You got to showcase your guys. And I feel like he has a good temperature check because, 25 transfers. Name 3 that really mattered.
Really,
Comments. Comment
Dason
section.
probably was the most maybe impactful that left rotationally, right?
Name 3 that mattered. Comment section. Any haters, sunshine pumpers, guys. Name 3 transfers. I'll wait, and I'm curious to see who people are going to say. Name 3 transfers that mattered. Name 3. Name 3. By the way, Hawkins threw the ball for more yards against Navy than Jackson Arnold did in any game that was an FCA opponent.
It's a fact. Yep. That's a fact.
Right? Dason McCullough is a good player. However, he was a tweener. Like they did not have a defined position for him. That doesn't mean he's not a good player. He can go into another system and play well because he's a good player. But in our system, he was a tweener. And I just personally believe they didn't think he was fundamentally sound to be an every down, just pure backer. Right? But right, like name, yeah, exactly. There weren't so I say all that to say optic wise, BV, he knows his program better than any of us, and I have faith that he does. He hasn't given me enough to say I have faith they're gonna win 10 games. I ain't gonna say that. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that would be naive of me to say. But I do know he knows what he got in that room. And you brought up a guy, I think Okoye is a great example. EPL is a great example. They got some dudes in there that they need to let loose. And Arbuckle's a good hire. But you didn't see any of the guys, like if Mitchell's leaving, if Hawkins was leaving, if Lewis Carter was leaving, if Jaden Jackson was leaving,
Yeah.
those kind of guys, Kip Lewis is leaving, we got problems. But the guys who are in the portal, we had some cancer at receiver. We were able to uncover that. That is a fact. There was some cancer at receiver. There were some depth pieces that were probably asked to leave. And then there were some guys who had opportunities to get paid. And hey, I get it. That's the landscape we're in. So in terms of us losing our talent, I told you before, Jackson was addition by subtraction. By the way, it's a win-win. It's good for him. Jackson's a good player. I don't think he's going to go to
Oh
Auburn and
yeah.
suck. By the way, he might go to Auburn and not play or have a short leash. They're going to play him because they paid him a lot of money. But if he doesn't show results, they've got a 5-star and they've got a guy coming back. There's no guarantee Jackson's going to be the incumbent. Money will talk, but like I look at our program, I'm not going to be crimson colored glasses, Barry. But I'm also not going to act like the sky is falling because we have recruited well, because we addressed the biggest issue we had, which is no offensive identity. And because even with our DC leaving, we all know the HBC is the guy running the show. So optically, recruiting wise, perception wise, those things matter today. It'll be interesting to see how he addresses it. The Navy game, defensively, I think they played well enough except for the substitutions. Offensively was a sieve, but we're never going to see that again. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. And I say this all the time. This is a game that is quarterback centric. And so we've got the best quarterback in the portal. And for all the guys who were forced into play this year, they're going to be coming back next year with real game reps. The Ozitas, the Howlands, the Nwitchy 54s, right? Those guys all played in it and kind of know what it feels like. They will have gotten bigger, stronger, faster, more comfortable. The game will slow down. We'll see how those guys do going into next season.
Yeah, I still think there's reason to be hopeful for next year. And just watching the game that does it is watching Iowa State and Miami tonight. You watched Cam Ward on one side, and then you watched what's his name, Rocco Becht or what for Iowa State. First of all, Iowa State's goal line plays phenomenal, right? They got one that they ran late in the game. I want to say to put up 35, where they had they had trips to the right and they run two receivers off and they both just run to the corner. Right. And then they leave that middle slant wide open and he just goes to the goal line and he throws him the ball down and away. And it's such an easy, like it's using space to your advantage, right? Because they're running it to the field. And it's such a simple thing to do in that situation. And it was basically a guaranteed touchdown from alignment, right? Because they knew that that Miami was in man, like you talked about. It was this when you're playing against man, it was the way to deal with that situation. But it was a great play. But you watch Iowa State's quarterback and their offense just look so efficient and effective, and like there's a plan. And Miami the same. Miami doesn't win the game, but in 1 year they flipped the script. And Florida State too. You know, it kind of the other way you look at it is look at what happens when you lose a quarterback.
Yep.
And you go from a team that was unbeaten, that should have been playing in the playoff, to a team that could hardly win a football game. And it's just the nature of the beast that is college football, you know, at the moment. It's so hard to build a perennial every year blue blood right now. Even Georgia, you know, has gone through some attrition and they've been affected. They're not the Georgia they even were 2 or 3 years ago. They're a different team. They're not a juggernaut program like they were that maybe second, right? I think 2 years ago. right? That they were a team that just was absolutely nasty, and that they've still got talent and money, but that they're still a program that has been affected by the portal. And you bring in a guy like Mateer, who is a game-changing quarterback, and you bring in an OC who's competent, who can do some of the things that Iowa State, who went 9-3 or 10 wins. They got to 10 wins this year.
Yep.
You got BYU with a competent offense going out there killing Colorado tonight, which was a little unexpected. But Colorado, probably reading a couple of their own press clippings. That's an old school quote.
Trenches too. Trenches. BYU's grown men in the trenches, whereas Colorado's wanting to play on the edges.
Well, D-Mac, good stuff tonight. Shout out to the shirt that you got on. But is that what Tupac from Juice right there?
It's from Poetic Justice, baby.
Poetic Justice. There we go. All right. I love that. There we go, man. Shout out Tupac Shakur. So awesome stuff tonight, everybody. Want to thank you all on the comments. Make sure to go follow us on X. D-Mac is at D_Mac13. Find me at BWise Fitness, at letter B, WISE Fitness. And if you're looking for OU news, recruiting info, and the like, football, basketball, softball, when that time comes and it's getting closer, I see all the comments about Joe C. I think it's important to remember, and maybe we need to talk about this next show, D-Mac. Football is still your bread and butter, but he has succeeded in putting really good coaches in at other places within the athletic program. Football is still numero uno, right? And I know that heads roll all the way up to the president when the football program isn't doing well at Oklahoma. But that might be something we touch on. But until next time, Sooner Nation, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We will see you soon.